good evening to all our viewers. You're watching Primetime News on TV1. For the News First team, I'm Yuki Poshia. And before we head into stories in detail, let's start off with a look at tonight's headlines.
News First headlines. Main sponsor.
Valuable Finance, best finance company.
Implement agreed demands of nurses in a manner that does not affect public service. A directive from the President. Government medical officers dismayed over decisions. Token strike on Monday. 65th anniversary of China-Sri Lanka diplomatic relations. Kidnapper father killed in police shooting. Ranjan Ramanayaka at Presidential Commission on Political Victimization provides a 4-hour statement. No fuel shortage. Stocks concealed in fear of price hike, says Minister Gammanpilla. Milk powder queue in Mirihana only at dawn. US hopes of Indian support if Russia attacks Ukraine.
News First headlines. Main sponsor.
Valuable Finance, best finance company.
Starting off with your top story tonight, President Gotabaya Rajapaksa has instructed officials to provide approved solutions to the nurses' issues in a manner that does not affect the entire public service. Now, the President issued this directive during a meeting with nurses' trade unions this morning. The chairperson of the Public Service United Nurses Union, Venerable Muruthettuwe Anandathera, and other trade union representatives were present for the meeting at the Presidential Secretariat. Establishment of the Nursing University, promotion of nursing officers from grade 2 to grade 1 with retrospective effect by backdating the promotion, providing of 10,000 rupee allowance, the issuance of the uniform allowance, and several other issues were discussed at the meeting. The President's Media Division quoted the President as saying that when one group is provided with solutions, another group once again made demands. The President has noted that it is important for everyone to understand that not all demands can be considered amid the current financial crisis.
දැන් මේ හෙද විශ්වවිද්‍යාල ආරම්භ කරන එක කරන්න පුළුවන් නේ දැනට කොයි තැනද තියෙන්නේ
ඒක අපි ඉස්සල්ලාම කටයුතු කරා මේ නර්සිං ස්කූල්ස් එකතු කරලා මේක තවත් ජාතික විශ්වවිද්‍යාලයක් බවට පත් කරන්න ඒ අනුව හයර් এডুকেෂන් ඇක්ට් එක එමෙන්ඩ් කරන්න අවශ්‍ය කටයුතු කරා
දැන් අවශ්‍ය වෙන්නේ විශ්වවිද්‍යාල
What is required is a university where a degree will be awarded. Therefore, there is no necessity to move it under the University Grants Commission. If that is done, enrollments will be based on the Z-score. If you look at the KDU, the UGC chairman is a member. Those standards can also be looked into.
විශ්වවිද්‍යාල ප්‍රතිපාදන කොමිෂන් සභාවේ සභාපතිතුමා ඒකේ මෙම්බර් කෙනෙක්. ඒකම ස්ටෑන්ඩඩ් එක එහෙම ඕනනම් ඒක බලන්න පුළුවන්.
අපිට අප්‍රේල් මාසෙ වෙද්දී අලුතෙන් ඇක්ට් එක සම්පූර්ණයෙන් හදලා මේක විශ්වවිද්‍යාලයක් බවට පත් කරන එක සම්පූර්ණයෙන්ම ඉවර කළා සෞඛ්‍ය අමාත්‍යාංශයට අපිට දෙන්න පුළුවන්.
මේ අනිත් වැඩ කටයුතු පැරලල්ව කරා නම් ඒවා ටික කරගෙන යන්න කියන්නේ. එතකොට මේක පාර්ලිමේන්තුවේ සම්මත වෙච්ච ගමන්ම පීඩවන්න පුළුවන්. ඒක ඉක්මනට කරන්න ඕනේ. ඒක අනිත් ඒවටත් බලපානවා. හරි. ඉලෑඳුම් දීමනාව වැඩි කරන එක අපි ඒක දෙන්නම් කියලා කිව්වනේ. ඒක ගොඩක් කාලෙකින් වැඩි කළා නෑ. අවුරුද්දකට විතර ඉස්සෙල්ලා රැස්වීමේදී එකඟ වුණා. මේක කරලා දෙන්න. ජනාත්මට
We thank the President for speaking to us as a matter of urgency and for giving us the strength to ensure the continuity of a more efficient nursing service. The Government Medical Officers Association is preparing to stage a token strike, citing that the salary policy is being violated. We will go for a token strike on Monday. The main reason for this is the salary issue, which is a sensitive matter. We must emphasize that when dealing with salaries, there is a national policy that needs to be followed. There are attempts being made to make salary hikes and changes for different grades via cabinet papers. This is what happens when a donkey tries to do a dog's job. If salary increases are not taking place according to the Wages Commission, if changes are made in an ad hoc manner, then more strikes will follow, leading to more issues.
ඒ වගේ වෙනස් කිරීම කෙරුවොත් අනිවාර්යයෙන්ම ඒ පසුපස තවත් වර්ජන රැල්ලක් හෝ යම්කිසි ප්‍රශ්න ගණනාවක් මතුවෙමින් පවතිනවා.
A grand ceremony to mark the 65th anniversary of China-Sri Lanka diplomatic relations was held this evening at the Nelumpukuna Mahinda Rajapaksa Theatre.
The 65th anniversary of China-Sri Lanka diplomatic relations was celebrated under the auspices of Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa and was attended by many, including former President Maithripala Sirisena and former Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe. The opposition leader also extended his wishes for the 65th anniversary of China-Sri Lanka diplomatic relations. At the same time, the 70th anniversary of the Ceylon-China Rubber Rice Pact was also celebrated. China is a historic friend of Sri Lanka and is an honest friend. I must make special note of that. The present Chinese President Xi Jinping is a personal friend and a friend of Sri Lanka. He supports the development projects in Sri Lanka. It is our aspiration and responsibility to carry forward strong relations between China and Sri Lanka.
ශ්‍රී ලංකාවේ අවංක මිත්‍රෙක් බව පැහැදිලි වන්නේ.
When we look back, especially during the time when the war against the LTTE was taking place, the support extended by China to us at the international stage clearly displayed that China is an honest friend to Sri Lanka. Whenever we faced issues internationally, especially at the UN and the UN Security Council and the UN Human Rights Commission, China always stood by us, and we cannot forget that.
චීනය සෑම විටම පෙනී සිටියේ අප වෙනුවෙන් කියන එක අපිට කිසිසේත් අමතක කරන්න පුළුවන් කමක් නැහැ.
During our long war against separatist terrorism, China supported Sri Lanka consistently and unhesitatingly, without imposing conditionalities or cutting off military supplies. As China emerges as a great power, one of the most influential factors and actors on the global stage, we appreciate its contribution of new ideas for the improvement of interstate relations.
While long-standing relations between China and Sri Lanka were commemorated in Colombo, Sri Lanka continues their discussions with India for the $2.4 billion aid package. Foreign Minister G.L. Piri said that Finance Minister Basil Rajapaksa plans to travel to New Delhi in 2 weeks for another round of discussions. India's economic assistance package included a currency swap of $400 million to improve the depleted foreign reserves, a deferred Asian currency union settlement of $515 million, along with another Indian credit line of $1.5 million to ease shortage of essential goods with imports from India. India also agreed to another credit of $500 million for the import of fuel. While Sri Lanka continues to receive aid for the ailing economy from India, the United States said that it hopes India will support the US if Russia invades Ukraine. State Department spokesperson Ned Price said yesterday that there was a discussion on Russia and Ukraine during the recently concluded Quad Ministerial in Melbourne that included foreign ministers from Australia, India, Japan and the United States.
So there was a discussion of Russia and Ukraine in the context of the Quad meeting that we had with our Indian counterparts. There was a strong consensus in that meeting that there needs to be a diplomatic, a peaceful resolution to this. One of the core tenets of the Quad is to reinforce the rules-based internet. One of them is that borders cannot be redrawn by force, that large countries cannot bully small countries.
The United States continue to maintain their position that Russia has positioned their troops along the border with Ukraine and is ready to attack. Recently, NATO defense ministers met in Brussels yesterday and discussed the looming threat of war at the Russia-Ukraine border. NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg said that NATO ministers of defense have decided to establish new NATO battle groups in Central, Eastern and Southeastern Europe.
Russia maintains a massive invasion force ready to attack, with high-end capabilities from Crimea to Belarus. At the same time, NATO remains prepared for dialogue. It is not too late for Russia to step back from the brink of conflict. Ministers decided to develop options for further strengthen NATO's deterrence and defense. including to consider establishing new NATO battle groups in Central and Eastern and Southeastern Europe. Ministers considered worrying developments across the globe, including Russia's and China's modernization of their nuclear arsenals and the continued risk of nuclear proliferation.
A Russian Foreign Ministry spokeswoman responding to the statement by the NATO Secretary General said Stoltenberg's words are not taken seriously in Moscow. Today we celebrate another day of non-aggression against Ukraine, and another day that will bring us closer to the sort of war that everyone in the West, Washington and London promised us. Once again, this war hasn't happened. It would have been amusing, but we are operating here with a thing that scares the whole world: war.
Опять же, было бы смешно, но мы оперируем все-таки тем, что пугает весь мир.
The conflict between Russia and Ukraine aggravated with Ukraine seeking for membership in NATO. Russia said that the expansion of NATO in such close proximity to Russia's border would jeopardize Russia's national security. NATO, on the other hand, maintains the position that under international law, any sovereign state has the right to choose and decide to join a regional or strategic bloc of their choice. Moving on to a headline-making story tonight, the 8-year-old boy who was kidnapped from Horana was found this evening and was handed over to the Horana Police HQI. The man who abducted his own son from Horana by brandishing a T-56 assault rifle was shot dead in a shootout with the police special task force.
Crime Watch.
Sri Lanka police announced that the man who was gunned down during a shootout with the police special task force motorcycle squad was identified as Neelanka Sandaruwan alias Neela. Police said the deceased was a person connected to a plethora of crimes. Sri Lanka police said on the 16th of February the man had visited his mother-in-law's residence in Kandana, Horana with a T-56 assault rifle and fired several shots into the air and then abducted his own son. Several days before the abduction, the man had attacked his wife with a sharp weapon, and she is currently being treated for serious stab wounds at the intensive care unit of the Colombo National Hospital. Sri Lanka police had launched a search operation to locate the kidnapper, and based on the investigation, police officers had surrounded a house in Vallapitiya, Horana. According to Sri Lanka police, the suspect had opened fire at the officers. Police officers then immediately called in for the support of the police special task force. The police special task force's motorcycle attack squad quick reaction team reached the location and they too were fired upon by the suspect, said Sri Lanka police, adding the STF personnel then returned fire, eventually killing the suspect. A T-56 assault rifle was found close to the remains of the suspect following a search carried out after the shootout. However, police said the suspect's son was not at the house where the shooting took place, adding a special operation was launched to locate him. The boy was found later in the evening and was handed over to the authorities.
Crime Watch.
Sri Lanka police believe that the murder of a woman with a T-56 assault rifle at a house in Mathugama recently could be the result of a dispute between two families. Police said they received information that the deceased woman's husband had a falling out with another relative and the suspects were sent to his house to kill him after a dispute escalated. The owner of the house, who had witnessed the two criminals storming into the house to carry out the shooting, managed to hide inside with his two children. However, the shooters had fled after shooting dead his wife. The Kalutara Crimes Division and 6 police teams are investigating the homicide. Police also suspect that the shooting may have been orchestrated by an underworld gangster operating from Mathugama.
Crime Watch.
Another social media activist summoned to the Criminal Investigations Department. Manoram Veerasinghe, a social media activist who is vocal against political and social incidents, was summoned to the Criminal Investigations Department today. Veerasinghe said he was not aware of the reason to summon him. Therefore, he has directed a letter to the CID through his counsel to inquire into the reason as to why he was summoned. He said after the CID informs him of the reason to appear, he will then prepare to provide the necessary information they require. National People's Power goes to the Human Rights Commission. A complaint was made to the Human Rights Commission citing that authorities have failed to serve justice by apprehending those responsible for the attack on a National People's Power meeting held recently in Kalagedihena, Gampaha. The complaint was made by attorney at law Sunil Watagala and Mahinda Jayasinghe. The incident took place on the 30th of January. We managed to nab the criminals and then hand them over to the police. We were informed by the media that these men were taken in a police jeep to the Watupitivala hospital. They had then broken free and gone to their residences. When questions were raised about this, the Nittambua police had summoned us on the 7th of February for an inquiry. But when the complainant visited the police, they tried to release the complainant on police bail. They are trying to make the victim the criminal. What is the example that is set out by the authorities in the country? Is this how you tell the people that law is being enforced? We are prepared to let go of this. We are here at the Human Rights Commission because the police are not solving this issue. If that also does not work, we will meet in court and we are prepared to file a fundamental rights petition with the Supreme Court. The Committee for Protecting Rights of Prisoners filed a complaint with Sri Lanka Police. The General Secretary of Committee for Protecting Rights of Prisoners, Sudesh Nandimal, filed a complaint with the Tissa Maharama Police today. In his complaint, Nandimal claimed that a certain group is gathering information and pursuing him. On the 15th of February, an unknown group had visited my neighborhood in Tissa Maharama and inquired about me. They have asked about the times I move in and out, as well as about the properties under my name. All security services have information about me. This incident of claiming to be from security services and gathering information about me is a threat. We must condemn these acts of making indirect threats at a time when social activists are pursuing justice. I am a person protected by the Protection of Victims of Crime and Witnesses Act. Ranjan Ramanayake moved from the prison to Presidential Commission. Former parliamentarian Ranjan Ramanayake, who is currently serving time in prison, was summoned to the police unit of the Presidential Commission of Inquiry probing incidents of political victimization. Ramanayake was escorted to the BMICH premises of the Presidential Commission at 9:30 this morning under heavy security. He was summoned as a respondent for 6 complaints and he provided statements to the police unit for approximately 6 hours. In the Upali Aberatna Commission report, it states that Ranjan Ramanayake is a respondent for 6 complaints. He was named a respondent in a complaint made by former Navy Commander Wasantha Karannagoda and 5 others. Ranjan Ramanayake dismissed their claims that they have evidence to make him a respondent. Former parliamentarian Ranjan Ramanayake will appear at the Presidential Commission once again on Friday and Saturday. Media Director of the Archdiocese of Colombo visits the CID. Reverend Father Jude Krishantha, the Media Director of the Archdiocese of Colombo, was back at the Criminal Investigations Department today to make a statement with regard to a complaint that he filed. Reverend Father Jude Krishantha filed a complaint with the CID on the 10th of December 2021 to investigate a statement made by Minister Prasanna Ranatunga and request the CID to investigate as to if his claims were true. The Media Director of the Archdiocese of Colombo left the CID premises after providing a statement for almost 3 hours. My statement was that Minister Prasanna Ranatunga be summoned and his statement be investigated. I believe there would be more evidence relating to this matter. After recording my statement, the detectives from the CID told me that Minister Prasanna Ranatunga will be summoned and questioned, and if his comments are accurate, it would be directed to the Attorney General. Based on the Attorney General's advice, the cases will be filed. That is what they told me.
Still in local news, the long line for milk powder opposite a local business in Mirihana Nugegoda that led to widespread discussion in recent months now only operates at dawn.
Over the past few months, long queues were witnessed opposite this milk powder store in Mirihana as people waited for hours to grab a packet of milk powder. After an incident that occurred on the 29th of December, the president instructed the police to get involved and implement a new procedure to issue milk powder to consumers. Tokens were issued recently for consumers to purchase milk powder. These tokens were valid for the next day. Presently, milk powder is only issued for approximately 2 hours during the morning from 6 a.m. till around 8:30 a.m.
මම කලුතර ඉඳලා ආවේ හැමදාම ඉතින් පිටි කොහෙවත් ගන්න නැහැ සීනි නැහැ පරිප්පු නැහැ පාන් පිටි නැහැ කිසි දෙයක් නැහැ මිනිස්සු ඉතින් හැමදාම පොලිමේ ඉඳලා තමයි බඩු ගන්න වෙන්නේ හතරට විතර ආවේ ඩොලර් නැහැ කියනවා ඒව නැහැ කියන ඉතින් ඒ ප්‍රශ්න වලින් මම හිතන්නේ මාෆියාවක් වෙන්න ඇති කියලා හිතන්නේ.
Why did authorities decide to shut down queues that lasted the entire day by 8:30 in the morning? Sri Lankan bakery owners are severely affected due to the increase in the price of flour. Many small-scale bakeries in Ratnapura, Kahawat and the market. The Publishers Association recently pointed out that the price of paper has also been increased by about 150%. This is due to the lack of dollars to import the paper required for the market.
ජනවාරි මාසේ පළවෙනිදා ඉඳලා මේ පෙබරවාරි මාසේ පළවෙනිදා වෙනකොට කඩදාසි මිල තිබුණ එක 100%ක් මිල ගිහිල්ලා. මගේ මේ මුද්‍රණ කටයුතුත් දැන් වහලා දාලා ගිහිල්ලා මොකක් හරි කුලී වැඩක් කරන මට්ටමට තමයි දැන් පත් වෙලා තියෙන්නේ. මුද්‍රණ බඩු නැහැ, තින්ත නැහැ, ප්ලේට් නැහැ.
වෙනදා කරන වැඩ ප්‍රමාණය දැන් අපෙන් වෙන්නේ නැහැ. ඒ නිසා හුඟක් ආයතන දැන් වහලා දමන තත්වයකට දැන් පත් වෙලා තියෙන්නේ. මම අවුරුදු 20කට කලින් ගෙහුවෙත් රුපියල් 5කට. අදත් මිනිස්සු වෙන්නේ රුපියල් 5කට ෆොටෝකොපියක් ගහන්න බලාගෙන.
Meanwhile, queues were seen at filling stations in many parts of the island today as well. One filling station in Maradana was closed due to the lack of fuel. Our correspondent said there was no diesel at many filling stations as well. There was neither diesel nor petrol available at one filling station in Hambantota. Only petrol was available in the other filling station in town. Queues were also seen at filling stations in Polonnaruwa. Most filling stations in the area had only petrol. This was the situation close to filling stations in Dambulla. Filling station owners say it's been 2 or 3 days since they placed an order. There's no petrol when the diesel orders arrive, no diesel when the petrol orders arrive, or there is a situation where neither is available. On one hand, filling station owners are helpless. On the other hand, consumers cannot pump fuel at low prices. They have to go to Lanka IOC filling stations and pump fuel for higher prices. If the IOC and the minister says that there is enough fuel for the cooperation, then the stocks must be hidden at filling stations. There is also a method to check if something has been concealed. No one has checked and no one has taken steps to dip these tanks and check the size. If that is done, you can find out if it is hidden. We feel that the CPC has limited distribution to increase the price to cover the loss that they have incurred. We request the CPC to immediately release stocks of diesel and petrol to filling stations and allow people to purchase fuel without any hassle. These days, Sri Lanka is facing a challenge in purchasing fuel. About 2/3 of the country's export earnings are spent on importing fuel. Meanwhile, due to the continuous demands of the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation and the Lanka IOC to increase fuel prices, we have received information from several places where fuel is hidden, while the rumors are circulating that fuel prices will increase tonight. We had reports that they had fuel, but it was not made available to the general public. We had to do a check and get fuel. Although it is difficult to purchase fuel, we still have stocks. If someone hides the fuel thinking that prices will go up and someone informs the CPC over the phone, the officials will take action. There can't be a situation where fuel is available at one station and not available at the other. If so, there should be a shortage experienced island-wide. Therefore, there may be difficulties in purchasing fuel. Apart from that, there is no shortage of fuel at the moment. I do not know how far it will go. At present, Sri Lanka is facing the highest crude oil prices. Without prior notice, I don't know how long this will go on for.
මම දැක්ක පහුගිය දවසේ උත්සවයක් තියෙනවා.
There was an event recently to welcome a ship with fuel that was procured using a loan from India. This was astounding. We have never heard of such an event where a minister goes to welcome a ship filled with fuel purchased on credit. I recall a request I made from the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi to build houses across the country. The Ministry of Housing received a grant from India and not a loan. When Narendra Modi was to come to Sri Lanka to declare open the houses constructed using that grant, some politicians called for the public to raise black flags. Do you see the difference? Black flags are raised when houses are built with aid, but those very people are going to welcome the ship of oil purchased on credit. Oil purchases has increased the debt in the country, but they have organized a welcome ceremony for that. Those who spoke of patriotism are the ones welcoming ships with oil purchased on credit.
දේශාභිමානී දේශානුරාගෙන් පෙළුණු කප්පිත්තෝ ටික දැන් ගිහිල්ලා ණයට ගත්තු තෙල් නැව පිළිගන්නට උත්සව තියෙනවා.
The opposition leader made these comments while handing over 2.9 million rupees worth of essential equipment to the Kalmune hospital as part of the SJB's Samagi Janabalavegin Husmak program.
Let's now toss over to a short commercial break. Do stay with News First. We will be right back.
What happened 40 years ago?
Tech Bus. The first phase of the Tech Bus initiative, successfully held at St. Andrews College in Puttalam.
ස්ලිප්ට ආයතනයත් එක්ක බොහොම සාර්ථක වැඩසටහනක් කරා. සමාජ මාධ්‍ය ජාල ගොඩක් පාවිච්චි කරනවා. කොහොමද ආරක්ෂිතව අපේ වැඩ කරගන්නේ කියලා ලොකු දැනුමක් හම්බුණා. අපේ අයට ලොකු දැනුමක් ලැබුණා කියලා මම හිතනවා. ඇත්තටම බෙහෙවින්ම ස්තුතියි.
මේ මෙහෙවර සාර්ථක වේවා කියලා ඊට සිතින් ප්‍රාර්ථනා කරනවා.
Tech Bus.
Organised by Slit Institute.
Tech Bus.
Main sponsor.
Slit Knowledge University, challenging convention and redefining education.
Valuable Finance, best finance company.
Welcome back to the news. State Minister Sanat Nishant says that the Sri Lankan economy was only second to China during the period Minister Basil Rajapaksa was the minister responsible for economic development in Sri Lanka.
The government has allocated funds to provide for the needs of the people because this is a government that listens to the voice of the people. We have proved this with practical examples. Sri Lanka's economy was only second to China during the time Basil Rajapaksa was the minister in charge of economic development. We had to take a step back because Sri Lanka started taking on these large-scale projects. Farmers in Katuwa Hambantota claim that their harvest for this season dropped by 75% after using only organic fertilizers for their paddy lands. If this is the harvest for this season, there will be less than 500 kilograms for us to reap. We will have nothing and we'll have to provide for the machines. Farmers from Hambaba in the Anuradhapura district also highlighted the same issue, where their harvest dropped by 75%. We used to secure around 250 sacks of paddy per every 5 acres. This time around, after using the government-issued fertilizer, we cannot even get 50 sacks. Over in Agbopura, Kantale, the harvest has dropped by 50%. The chairman of the All Ceylon Farmers Federation, Namal Karunaratna, visited this area on Thursday. The government purchases the paddy that the farmers cultivate for 92 rupees. However, the intermediary purchases for a very low price. Then the price turns to 102 rupees. If they can pay 102 rupees, why can't the farmers get a better price?
Gammadda is a movement that is changing lives across Sri Lanka together with the people. From today, the villagers of Mahakatuwaragala in Anuradhapura will drink clean water after decades of suffering.
Ever wondered what life would be like if you had to walk several kilometers to get to clean water to quench your thirst? This is life of the Mahakatuwaragala village in Kabidikollava, Anuradhapura. Today, their suffering came to an end. Gammadda declared open a water purification plant for the 110 families that live in this village. This project was made possible by the generous support of the past president of the International Women's Society in Sri Lanka for the year 2021, Suranisena Nayaka, her executive committee, and the members of the International Women's Society in Sri Lanka. Technical expertise was provided for this project by the Ceylon Water Board.
මම හිතනවා මින් පස්සෙව දේශපාලඥයන්ට ගමට එන්න බැරි වෙයි රෙදි අඳගෙන. මොකද රෙදි අඳගෙන එන්න පුළුවන් කමක් නැහැ. මේක දැක්කහම ඇඟ හිරි වැටෙන්න ඕනි.
අතීතයේ කියන්නේ මහා දුක්ඛම් කටළු ගොඩක් අපේ අම්මලා තාත්තලා ගෙවලා තියෙනවා. අපිට තිබුණේ එක පොදු ලිඳයි. ඔය පොදු ලිඳෙන් තමයි වතුර හැමෝම ගන්නෙ. ඉතින් මේ කරපු සත්කාරය ගැන අපිට කියන්න වචන නැහැ. ඇත්තටම ගොඩාක් පිං.
This is what is possible when the people stand united. Gammadda, for the people, by the people.
The 17th of February is a special day for Sri Lanka cricket. 40 years ago on a day like today, Sri Lanka played its first international test match.
That was English team. On the 17th of February 1982, the P. Saravanamuttu ground was ready for a significant cricketing event for Sri Lanka. The first international test match that Sri Lanka played got underway there on that day against the English team. The Sri Lankan cricket team was led by Bandula Warnapura, and the youngest member of the team at the time was Arjuna Ranatunga. Today, he reminisced about his first international test match. We must remember the cricketers who are not with us today, especially people like Bandula Warnapura and Anura Ranasinghe should be remembered. Mr. Gamini Disanayake worked very hard to obtain the test status for Sri Lanka. They had the right people, and they were taking these players on the correct path. I was also guided and protected by Mr. Gamini Disanayake. Mr. Raja Mahendran took care of all these players as well. He looked into the well-being of the players, and when there were hardships, he stood by us. When the play ended, 4 days later, England won the test match against Sri Lanka by 7 wickets. We were at a hotel in Yorkshire after a county match in the year 1981 when we received the news that we had received test status. We had it in our minds that we will one day be able to play a test match and take the sport forward. When we went to England in 1982, we got £2 for food. That is all we received. There was no match fee and there were no contracts.
match fee contract fee
Taking a look at some news overseas, Britain's Prince Andrew, the Queen's second son, has reached a deal with Virginia Giuffre to settle her civil sex abuse lawsuit against him. Giuffre alleges she was trafficked by convicted pedophile Jeffrey Epstein and forced to perform sex acts with his friends, including the senior royal. She also said the Duke of York had been aware she was underage in the US at the time. Giuffre brought the case last August under the Child Victims Act. Andrew, aged 61, repeatedly rejected the allegations against him. Just weeks ago, his lawyers had demanded a jury trial to clear their client's name. But now, the looming courtroom showdown is off. On Tuesday, the two sides reached an out-of-court settlement for an undisclosed figure. Prince Andrew's lawyers have spent months trying to undermine Giuffre, arguing her claims were motivated by money. They wrote in a blistering court filing in October that, quote-unquote, Giuffre has initiated this baseless lawsuit against Prince Andrew to achieve another payday at his expense. UK newspapers twisted the knife yesterday with numerous headlines suggesting the deal amounted to anywhere between 10 to 12 million pounds. Questions over how Andrew will foot the bill remain. There have been suggestions that the Queen may contribute. A Buckingham Palace spokesperson told foreign media the palace would not be commenting on the latest developments in the case on Tuesday, once again saying it was a matter for the Duke and his legal team. And with that, it's a wrap of primetime news here on TV1. For the News First team, I've been Miyuki Pasha, along with our sign language interpreter, Bradley Cruz. Take care and good night.